So although I coach mainly in finance and private equity, I'm not talking to them about like how to hack your leadership, how to eat more red meat and bang your chest for breakfast. Nobody needs another leadership book.
Preach.
Yeah. But they do need to talk about like, how do I navigate a toxic work environment where there's so much money at stake here and I don't know how to get out of this loop?
Hey, Nicole, what do you get when a former corporate CEO and a do-gooding executive walk into a recording studio?
Well, Aaron, nothing, because the two of us are usually on my couch or Zoom, because wine.
You get a podcast created for Gen X women who are bought into the corporate world, but fed up with the BS.
I know. It's how to thrive the 9 to 5 or 6 or 7.
It's career therapy. It's comedy. It's definitely full-on authenticity. Basically, we give you tangible strategies to rise in your career without compromising everything else.
Because work doesn't have to suck.
Oh my goodness, my friend, I cannot tell you how much I loved this episode, this interview for myself, and in particular for you. Dr. Mandy Lehto is an executive coach, and she has worked with some of the biggest companies in the world, Oracle, UBS, Nestle, many others, and with leaders who want more of their leadership, but also their lives. But I know you're thinking, you're like, I don't want to talk about leadership. And in fact, I think she said a couple of times, like, we don't need another leadership book. We really don't. And we really need guidance and help and space to lead ourselves from the inside out. And I know that sounds super woo-woo, but I'm telling you, the story she tells and the profound way she frames things like people pleasing and this concept of nexting and as a chronic overachiever, and how she can help you reframe that and look at it differently. I'm telling you. So this is an episode. Feel free to listen to it right here and now proactively, but also might be that episode when you're having one of those days, when you're feeling a little down, or you need a framing to get you going in the morning and you're struggling with burnout and feeling like you're not enough and just having one of those days where, as she says, the chorus in your head, which I love so much, there isn't just a voice in your head, there's a whole chorus. And sometimes they sing really well and sometimes they sing really shitty. This is the episode to throw in your earbuds, go for a walk, lay on your bed, sit on your porch, drive to nowhere, and just listen to her words. And I am certain that at least a quarter of what you hear will land so hard, so heavy, and so powerful with you. So without further ado, enjoy this time with Mandy Lehto. I want to start with, I'm kind of obsessed with people that have really eclectic backgrounds. And holy crap, that is you. Tell us a little bit about sort of that eclectic background you have.
So I'm going to go way back. My first job was in a funeral parlor. I grew up in Canada. I worked in a funeral parlor in the flower shop. And it was really interesting because I would always be taking flowers next door and there's people preparing the caskets. And I don't know if they still do, but in those days they had open caskets. So there was people like with the cotton buds on the person, their hair was in rollers. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is not like the other jobs. This is not like the kids who work at McDonald's. In high school, I got my training at the YMCA and I became a certified aerobics instructor. So think Jane Fonda in a shiny leotard, standing on a little stage with a lot of 80s music, not losing her enthusiasm in front of a group of people doing difficult choreography. So that was me.
You had the butt floss and everything?
I had the butt floss. I had the Terry wristbands. Like I was just in it. Richard Simmons videos. Yeah, that was all me. And then I worked in a veterinary lab in a morgue doing necropsies, doing sort of parasitic studies, on horses and tapeworm. like really random stuff. I worked as a tutor for underprivileged kids, teaching them math problems and how to read. And then I did my PhD and I went into investment banking. I did a PhD in history. I moved to England, went to Cambridge and did a PhD in history. And then when I finished and I was completely primed to be a history professor, I went into investment banking. So I have done so many hairpin turns in my life. I then went from investment banking into coaching. And I started a business as a corporate coach. Back in those days, nobody really knew what coaching was because I was an early adopter. So they were like, "You're leaving this to do basketball? Like, what, are you working with kids?" Or I said, no. I had to explain what coaching was. And then I started an image consulting business on the side, all the kind of dress for success stuff. And so I did all my color and makeup and personal styling and all of that training as well. So I have, as you said, a real toolbox of all kinds of different skills.
When you were in that, maybe not in the early years, but as you got into college and sort of got your first, let's call it real job, although I would argue those were pretty real jobs before that. What was your mindset? Was your mindset, God, I'm a fucking mess, I have no idea what I'm doing? Or was your mindset, this is such a fun journey and I'm learning so much? Or was it somewhere in between?
I think I was smack dab in the middle of it. I have been somebody with high functioning anxiety my whole life. I just never knew to call it that. So from the outside, I look like a badass. I always was the straight A student. I had the gold stars. I was dressed. My eyebrows were done. My legs were shaven, even in the middle of winter. My kitchen was organized, like all of it. I just felt like I was functioning at a very, very high level. And inside, my vicious inner critics, because I have more than one, were constantly telling me what a loser I was, how I was falling behind, how I was never going to make it. And on the other hand, I also had this joyful side that was like, oh, I'm out experiencing things in the world. There's all these amazing humans. I'm deeply curious and I seek connection with other like-minded beings. So I'm like this weird buffet of things. And I say weird, like kindly to myself. I finally learned to be kinder to myself and to my little gospel choir of inner critics and mixed up with their inner champions. Like they all have something to say. So yeah, I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
I do all have something to say. I love that. So your podcast is called Enough. Why enough?
It's a play on words because I got to a point, to quote Liz Gilbert, I love that famous quote of hers that, we all changes happen when we get tired of our own bullshit. I'm paraphrasing there, but I got to a stage where I got so tired of my own bullshit, particularly that you're not enough. You need to achieve the next thing to be able to get there. Just the next bonus, just the next promotion, just the next client, just, whatever. And I realized that I was addicted to achievement. I was addicted to nexting. The promised land was in the next thing. And I realized that when I achieved something that to other people looked amazing, it would be like, yeah, look, and I would just leapfrog onto the next thing. And I thought, you know what? That's not a way to live. And of course, I'm doing this on time-lapse photography. I'm telling you that there's a lot of mess and a lot of soul searching underneath that, but we can go into that if you like. But I got to this stage where I realized that I could spend my entire life seeking out the formula to being enough. And something told me that in spite of my smarts and in spite of my gumption and in spite of everything, that there was no there. So the whole illusion that enough is somewhere to get to, all of a sudden made me realize like, okay, we're all seeking that. There's such a common theme with whether I'm in a yoga class and the yoga teacher is kind of giving some sort of esoteric, abstract advice about life, or whether it's a fortune cookie, or whether it's my female coaching clients, like everyone is seeking this mystical enoughness. It's like, where is it? It's like the lost Atlantis. Where do we go to find it? And then I realized, like, I'm just so done with that. I'm getting bored of that. So there's a play on words there, like the thing that we are seeking. I'm just like, enough already, enough.
It's a little bit of that. I know you had sort of a breaking point. I mean, most people do. It's easier to see in hindsight. But what I think was so interesting about your breaking point, which in some ways was, physical issues. We've heard this sort of story enough, but it's also interesting that you tried to solve it almost doing the same formula, but in a different costume. I think to tell us, the 42 things. Tell us a little bit about that.
Bless my cotton socks. Look at me go. This is hilarious. That was such an aha moment from my own coach. So I'll take you back. I had multiple, I suppose now in hindsight, you can call them breakdowns or midlife breakthroughs or what have you. But everything really ultimately collapsed when I did. I thought my body was here at my beck and call to do whatever I told it to do. And it did. It complied in my 20s and 30s. And then things started to get creaky in my early 40s. But because I was like Thelma and Louise, just gunning it, not realizing there's a big canyon coming, I am just going for it, pedal to the metal. I started getting this like really yucky looking rash around my nose and chin. And eventually it turned into this scabby goatee. It was disgusting.
What every woman is hoping to have.
Oh, and I couldn't hide it with concealer because it was like your face is covered in cornflakes. So you can't put concealer on that shit. Like it just doesn't work. It just looks worse. Mm-hmm. And then my kids were asking, he's like, Mommy, why do you look like a lizard? So I thought, okay, it's not just me blowing this out of proportion. I didn't want to leave the house. My period stopped happening, or else it would be like a Quentin Tarantino scene. It was like one or the other. It's not there. I'm doing pregnancy tests in my late 40s. I'm thinking like, okay, don't want to surprise little one at this stage, but it was just like my period went AWOL, or, just all of a sudden feeling like my heart was hammering out of my chest for no reason at all, or feeling detonatable when my son was practicing clarinet and I'm chopping carrots in the kitchen and my daughter's playing with one of those plastic toys that gives you a blinky facial tick and all of that noise at the same time. Like I thought, I'm going to lose my shit right here, right now. And it was just a normal day. And then there was me kind of in the pantry eating bags of chips, plain ruffled chips, and like literally licking the bag. I was like, what is wrong with me? I need more coffee. I need more high intensity interval training. That's exactly what I need because historically that's what had sorted me out. And so I hired this rugby player, personal trainer who put me through my paces. And I remember he had me on the treadmill doing these high intensity sprints. And the speed of the treadmill was like, I remember as a child watching The Bionic Woman, Lindsay Wagner, like going, like, oh my God, I'm having my...
Which was probably a little like an early technology gif where she ran like 3 strides and then they just kept running. You were really right.
And I thought, look at me going, look at me going. And then we did boxing and I collapsed on the floor in the gym like a shot bird. And then he's like, hey, are you okay? And I went to splash water on my face in the ladies' room and I looked at myself and I looked like death. There's me with this pale face and this scabby goatee. And I thought, wow, something is not right. So I said, let's finish for the day. He's like, yeah, cool, no problem. High five. We'll see you tomorrow. And I went home and I held the wall on the way up the stairs, going in this decrepit fashion up the stairs. And I put the shower on because I didn't even want to shower at the gym. And I just felt the water pounding on my back and my heart started hammering. And after I got out of there, I wrapped my hair up in a towel and I just thought I was so cold. I felt like I had come out of an ice bath and the bathroom was like dripping with condensation because it was so hot in there and I was freezing and I thought something is really not right with me. And I went and I collapsed onto the bed and I woke up hours later. It was like I had been shot by a tranquilizer gun or something. I was out cold. And I woke up 4 hours later with sheet marks on my face, my hair still in that towel. And it was my daughter's school calling. It's like, oh, has there been some mistake with the pickup? So there's me. No, I'm coming. Like still in my robe with the sheet marks all over my face, with my hair still in the towel. panicking. And this is a snapshot of what my life was like me trying to keep it together. But mostly nobody else would know. I mean, my kids and my husband knew that something was wonky and the wheels were falling off, but I could still manage to look highly functional on the outside and had this hot little motor burning on the inside that this is how I must proceed because this is success. So to make a long story short, now that I've painted that picture for you, I ended up going to 4, 5, 6 doctors. Nothing wrong with me. Your tests are normal. So of course my inner critics are like, you're just lazy. You can't hack it. And then finally I went to work with a functional medicine person and she said, "Ooh, we need to talk," because she said I had the most extreme version of adrenal fatigue. She said, which accounts for the fact that you're craving salt, that you can't sleep. So she took me off all of my wine, which made me very cross. In the evenings, I was like me and my Cabernet Sauvignon. No more coffee in the mornings. I had a real hissy fit. I'm like, how am I supposed to function? And so little by little, she peeled my bony death grip off of all of these things that were actually keeping me functioning. But when I let go of those, I realized the grim truth of where I was actually at physically, mentally. And that was like what I call the lost years of my 40s, where for several years I was dysfunctional. One of those years I spent most of it in bed, just barely functioning. My husband worked an incredibly stressful job. Then he had to come home and do the homework and the school bags and the dinners. And of course, I'm feeling like the size of a Playmobil person at this stage because I'm an overachiever. I get shit done. And all of a sudden I'm breathing and barely functioning and need help washing my hair. So it was like, as I said, the lost years compounded with so much nastiness to myself. Like I thought, what is even the point of me?
Yeah. And then you thought, okay, I'm going to get myself out of this. Tell us a little bit about that next journey.
Well, I thought I'm going to become a super duper healer. I'm going to turn I know it wasn't intentional, but this is what you were referring to earlier about like turning the perfectionist onto well-being. So I thought I'm going to go on these meditation courses and I'm going to buy all the meditation apps and the cushions and become like a competitive meditator and hack my healing. And I hired a coach because eventually my functional medicine person said, the rest is an inside job. We can keep tuning you up, but until you learn how to be differently in the world, we're just maintaining you here at this level. So I'm like, right, okay, meditation, tick. I am now going to get a coach who's going to help me with this. And this coach was like really helping me get out of my head. She said, you're a head on legs. We need to get you out of your head and into your body. I'm like, great. How do I do that? So we did.
I take a left first or right? Is it?
No, I just shake my head. You can see where all this is going. So I went to see all these various healers and gurus, and my coach gave me all these various experiences to go and do. I worked with a tantric healer after tons of resistance. I went on multiple women's retreats. I started writing a book about it. I went to sit on a mountainside in Sedona and worked with different healers, and I had conversations with my lady parts, and I did like past life regressions and all sorts of things. And I'm just thinking, okay, I feel like I'm moving in the right direction, but I'm still waiting for someone to tell me what to do. Like, give me the bullet point list of what I'm supposed to do, and then I will go away and execute it. And I spoke to one of the top coaches on the planet. I flew to Arizona to be in his presence and have this conversation with him. And I was like, tell me what to do. I'm desperate. I don't know what to do. And I flew there. There I was with my notebook and my pen poised over, waiting for the words of wisdom from this guy. And I was so gutted when he looked at me and he folded his hands up and he said, Mandy, nobody's coming to save you. We save ourselves. And I just felt like that was such a gut punch. And I was like, well, shit, you could have emailed me that.
Email.
And I felt so gypped. Just tell me what to do. And I felt the clenchiness and the desperation building. And then little by little, I had to realize that I had been outsourcing all of the solutions. Like, give me the pill, give me the formula, give me the prescription, tell me what to do. And all that stuff I had been doing with my coach. Like, she sent me to 5 Rhythms dancing. As I said, I went to a tantric expert, and I went there with the mindset that I was going to go there as the gold star pupil, and I was going to hack my healing. And what I started to slowly realize after that, the bottom falling out, like, I don't think the burnout was the bottom really falling out. Like, I realized there was a new false bottom there. Like, there was further down to go, where I realized that nobody was coming. And it felt so lonely. It felt like I'm laying there and I'm laying here and I can't get up. I don't know what to do, because my whole life I had been trained not to trust my own instincts. I'd been trained to shut my feelings down from the neck down. I had been trained just like, do what you're told. The power is outside of you. And I had to then go on a whole different journey of learning how to be with myself in a different way, that I didn't have to push myself beyond the brink of my physical limitations, which all of a sudden I had in my 40s. Mm-hmm. That I didn't have to be somebody to be somebody. I was already enough. And I can't say that revelation presented itself, with rainbows and unicorns and all of that. Like, it was hard fought and messy and ugly and dirty. And I still don't believe it, but I'm open to the possibility that I'm enough. I'm open to the possibility that without all my hustling and striving and shiny things and achievements and accolades, that I'm still a being with my own inner world and my own weird eccentricities and imperfections. And I think the big reveal from all of that was that I had spent so many years trying to perform over all those things that I thought were not worthy of being shown in public. Like, there was something about the not enough seeds that were planted in childhood. Like, as long as I achieve and as long as I look good and as long as I say the right thing, as long as I comply, don't make waves, don't make a fuss, just be that person, and then others will bestow enoughness and head pats and gold stars on you, and then you'll be okay. Until you need the next hit and the next hit and the next hit, hence the addiction. It's the only addiction we're praised for, which is what makes it so insidious. So to come to that place where somebody said, like, I don't relate to you, Mandy, somebody I respected said, I don't relate to you because it's all too shiny and lacquered. I can't see you or feel you. And who you actually are, when you're not trying so hard, when there's not so much efforting to be a certain way, who you actually are is so much more compelling than you're trying so hard to be.
Hey there, it's Erin. I'm just popping in real quick to ask you a question. Is there any chance you know someone who is looking for a keynote speaker for their upcoming event? Look, I know that many event organizers, they struggle to find a speaker who provides both tangible value and business knowledge, but that also lights their audience on fire. And I truly believe there aren't many speakers like me out there who are both former corporate executives and professionally trained speakers. And there's definitely none that roll in with an orange suitcase they unpack with their audience. Trust me on that. I would love nothing more than to bring my message of using authenticity as your strategic career and business advantage to people spinning in your universe, especially if you'd be there. I promise my talks always create an immediate buzz, but not just right after, but for months and years after the event is over. You can learn more about my message, style, and reviews, and share my speaking info by going to beauthenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. That's B, just the letter B, authenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. Or, of course, we have it right in the show notes to make it easy for you too.
I heard you tell the story. Maybe you could tell us about I think it was a mastermind coach that said something about all the things you had in the nice house. And can you tell that story?
So this is a Canadian coach that I was sitting with who I gravitated to him because he had this sort of excellent coiffed hair, and he had this pocket square in his quite dandy jacket and argyle socks, and was obviously very image conscious. And I thought, well, he'll be a good person to partner with. Like he gets it. And we sat together. We were facing each other, knee to knee. Our chairs were positioned in that way. And he started, the exercise in this coaching mastermind we were in was like to give each other some really radical feedback, radically honest feedback.
Mm.
So he had these sort of swimming pool blue eyes, and he's looking at me, and I'm feeling nervous on the inside. Remember, high functioning anxiety, you look great and you look composed on the outside, but inside you're custard. So there I was waiting for whatever was going to come.
Worst thing ever, right?
Butthole all clenched up, like, oh, what's going to happen here? And all of a sudden he starts talking, and he said, you're so impressive. You know, you've got your PhD from Cambridge. You know, you've got this successful business. You're so put together. And inside, I'm blooming. I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be awful. And then he leaned towards me, as I said, with those piercing blue eyes, and he paused. And I thought, oh, my instinct is to flinch, right? And it wasn't wrong. But it was coming from a good place. Like, his face was not nasty. And I remembered the point of the exercise, and I kind of went into an internal brace position. And he said, I want to tear that shit down. Ugh. And I thought for the first time that somebody had really seen me. So I felt sick, and I felt slightly relieved, because it felt like so much energy to keep up that facade and that performance. He said, you fool everybody here, even the leader of the group. You fool him, but you don't fool me. I see you because I've been you. And that's when the ugly crying started. Like, I completely, mascara everywhere, like the lines of snot dripping down my upper lip. I mean, this was not something I was used to doing. Like, around. What has he done to her?
Well, and I think whether it was him or others, I mean, one of the points too wasn't just that he called you out, but I think he also was saying the things that you have, that you have been striving for, that you are maybe proud of, are the very same things that are disconnecting you.
Yes,
himself.
Exactly. Yeah, he said, you know what? You're like a shiny new iPhone. It's fun to look at and fun to, play with, so to speak. But then I'll go for a beer with my friends because I can't relate to you.
Right.
So that was the Billie Eilish moment right there. Like, he couldn't relate to me. And there was me thinking all these things I thought would create connection.
Because you looked the same. You had similar, maybe accolades or credentials. But at the end of the day, and this is something I feel so passionately about, is that imperfection is actually the best connector. And the converse to that is perfection is the biggest disconnector. And that's where, I've always stayed in the positive, and I think there's something so profound in the negative, that we have to understand that by trying to be perfect or hiding our imperfections or going through the motions like we do, like we're right in the middle of the holiday season, right? To have the perfect home and the perfect meals is actually the biggest thing we're doing to create disconnection with others, especially our friends, definitely our colleagues, our bosses, even. And a lot of people listening might be thinking, okay, well, great. So now she's a coach. And then, so maybe the only way to get out of this is like to full-time coach yourself and then coach others. But you mostly work with corporate leaders and corporate executives. And one of the things I know you've mentioned is what they come to talk to me about is usually not what you actually talk about. Tell us more about that.
So I work with people who have already hit a certain level of success. They are overachievers. They have the shiny things. They have the status. They have the money, but they have fallen into a state of disillusionment because it's either not lighting them up anymore, or else they're hanging by a thread and exhausted, or menopause is kicking their butt, or, some other brick wall event in terms of physical or mental health. Or the other thing that they might be facing is I've supposedly arrived, right? Because I'm at this space and this is what it says on my business card. And I can't have this conversation with anybody else, but secretly I'm thinking like, I worked so hard for this. And is this all there is? I feel empty. I don't feel fulfilled. And I'm wondering, like, I've traded so much for this. And yes, I have all the shiny things and nobody would feel sorry for me. But secretly, I wonder, and I'm scared, will it ever be enough? Will I go into my old age sort of cynical and dried up thinking like, was that worth it? So again, these are people whose lives look shiny on the outside and they have everything that they could have ever dreamed of. But on the inside, they're wondering how long this can go on. They're wondering, was it worth it? Is this all there is? And also, like, can I do something different with my life? Like, I'm on this diamond encrusted hamster wheel. I'm here, and what would I even do? Like, I know I don't want to retire because I would go completely crazy because I'm so used to doing all the time. And I'm all about that, providing that safe space to have those conversations that they don't have anywhere else to have. So although I coach mainly in finance and private equity, I'm not talking to them about like how to hack your leadership, how to eat more red meat and bang your chest for breakfast. Nobody needs another leadership book.
Preach.
Yeah. But they do need to talk about like, how do I navigate a toxic work environment where, there's so much money at stake here and I don't know how to get out of this loop. I've drunk the Kool-Aid. I've associated success with money and I have to stay here and my soul is dying. What do I do? Or how do I deal with my disillusionment? So it's these conversations that nobody else is having. This is not your usual leadership stuff that I talk about with my clients.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of a client, obviously no names, where they were dealing? I mean, that is a common theme. Toxic workplace, burnout, dealing with shitty leadership, dealing with just having to work too much. Maybe they're not even wanting to, a lot of our audiences, we sort of say they're bought into corporate, but they're fed up with the BS. And so, they're not looking to jump ship necessarily. Can you give us an example of someone where you were able to take them from this place where they were just succumbing to the BS and the anxiety that's associated with that, and they were able to not make a radical change, but were able to shift their mindset or do something differently to be able to, navigate that more easily?
I think a lot of it comes from learning how to connect with what you want. And the story I'll tell is kind of a fusion or a hybrid of a couple of different individuals. One of them, a male partner in a private equity firm, and two others are female partners. And a lot of it is this, I'm on this track. I've been on this track since I was hired here, 14 years ago, 10 years ago. And I'm still operating from what success looked like for me at that time. So if you start this job when you're 35 or 30, by the time you're in your mid 40s or later approaching 50, it's a totally different metric of what might constitute success. You've had several bonuses, maybe you've cashed in on some carry in the meantime, whatever has happened. And I think there's this is what I'm locked and loaded into success equals money
I'm
and
pot committed.
emotion.
I'm pot committed.
Completely.
I've got sunk costs in whether it's in my time or my network or real money.
Yeah. So after a while, the thrill is gone.
Right.
So how much more money does one need? And it just becomes this autopilot. It's kind of like Groundhog Day again and again and again. It's the same cycles. And there's this growing disillusionment again, but it becomes pushed down. There's it's inconvenient to know that. So a lot of these are super smart people. They're bored. They're not necessarily super stimulated. Like, it's hard and stressful because of the intensity of the job. But a lot of these are really curious people who their passions have been lost because of the intensity of the job. They probably have small children, and there's major guilt around that because, you get that 15 minutes before they go to bed by the time you have come home. So there's this probably this need to renegotiate what success could look like.
Wow.
And what it is that they want. I don't know about you, Erin, but sometimes if I ask someone that question, like, what do you want? They go completely bunny in the headlights. It's like, what do you mean? What do I want?
Yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, just to interject, and I want to hear more of the story. I was thinking about this the other day. For me, it's knowing what you want and wanting it so much that you're more scared of not having that than you are of leaving the track or pulling back on the thing or making that change that most people get stuck on being scared. I think both of them are scary. It's just a matter of how do you maybe gain that clarity and that change. That I always talk about changing addictions. I don't change people, I change addictions. So I really connect when you say it's an addiction, because that's, to me, all motivators, if you can think of them as healthy addictions. So I can really relate with that clarity and wanting to define what is that they want and what is that success, whether that's a slight shift or a radical shift.
Yeah. And that would be the shift that I help them to first of all work on, is if they start to get clear what their priorities are, what their values are, what feels good to them, and then starting to think, well, does this have to look like a big leap?
Mm-hmm.
Or could you simply shift the way that you're relating to what it is that you're doing? Do you have to? That's the beauty of being a bit more seasoned in some of these. Where can you offload caring so much? Where can you delegate a little bit more? Even 1% delegation, 2%, 3%, doing that a little bit more. Those little micro moves add up. Where could you create a little bit more spaciousness in your life? Where could you, it's a real exercise in curiosity of just where the stakes are low. If somebody's not ready to make a big leap, because as you said, it's scary. That's the loss aversion. It's a psychological phenomenon. Like, it's one of these things, a psychological bias, I think it's called, that we're way more leery about the risk of losing what we already have, even if it's not that great and we're not happy. We're leerier about risking that than the potential upside if we did make a change. It could be way better, but we're willing to white knuckle onto the thing that we know, better the devil we know, whereas often meandering off piste into the unknown could bring such great reward. But it's just how we're wired. We don't want to give up what is a good thing, and we'll often choose unhappiness over uncertainty.
Right. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the person, because I know my audience, I think, really well. After our audience has been around for 3.5 years, and what would you say to the person that says, I feel like I'm enough in certain situations at work, when I'm working with my peers, my team, but not when I get into the big meeting with the big boss or the big oak table that costs more than probably their first home. Uh, and they sort of just become this different person. What would you say to them?
I would say you're not alone, first of all. I think this is probably imposter syndrome that we're talking about, at least part of it. And it's perfectly normal. Of course you feel like that. So I think the first thing is, what if you didn't make it wrong?
Mm,
And I'm talking more about as though we're watching game tape as opposed to giving people strategies in the heat of the moment, which we can also do. But if we're looking at game tape now, of course you feel like that because something is at stake.
mm,
I often say, though, I think imposter syndrome is often given a bad rap. Imposter syndrome, often when I think about it, is it gives us that little kickstart that something is at stake here that I care about.
mm.
There's an opportunity for me to demonstrate what I'm capable of, and it could go wrong. I cannot be in control of all of how this will play out. So for me, and for many of the people who I work with, there's often a physical reaction if we're looking at the game tape. Okay. So we see somebody at that oak table, their bit is about to come up, and you sort of see, if we could have those scientific cameras that go into their bodies, we can see that their heart rate starts pounding. Their armpits have probably turned into Niagara Falls. They probably need to pee, like they're having all the feels in that moment. Their adrenaline is pumping. And that's not necessarily a sign that you're going to crash and burn.
Mm.
So one of my really great friends, one of my oldest friends, is an opera singer. And she's been singing opera professionally for, 20 plus years. She said she still gets that. Her profession is to stand on stages every day and to go for auditions. She said, oh, that's a good thing. She said, when you feel nothing, your body doesn't have the chemicals that it needs to give you a knock it out of the park performance.
Yeah.
So it's a way of relating also to the physiology of imposter syndrome. It's like the voice is telling you all those things. Okay, we can talk about how to deal with the voice, but the physiological impact of imposter syndrome, all those like the armpits, the sweaty palms, the dry mouth, all of that stuff is like, if you can tip it into thinking about like my body is preparing me to give a great performance. It's giving me like that turbo boost that I need. And then being able to understand how to modulate that in the heat of the moment. Because I think in that way, we're not necessarily that sophisticated. The fear response, like you hear footsteps behind you in a dark alley, you might get the same physiological response. So it's easy to mix them up. So that's one thing. That's the game tape response. The second game tape response is prepare. Prepare the best that you can, because if you know your stuff and you prepare as much as you can, that will really, really help you to ground yourself in that moment. And preparing yourself can also mean having the permission slip in your back pocket to say, I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
That always comes in the toolkit too.
And I would say, I think preparation is important, but not to be confused with those meetings are not tests.
That too.
They're not. And I think that's what a lot of people, whether it's an interview or a big meeting, I think what you're saying is you're preparing so you can feel comfortable, because at the end of the day, it's really about creating the connections in those meetings and having the dialogue. But I think so many people, and I completely relate. I think it's so easy to confuse adrenaline too. I know when I professionally speak, and I remember when I started doing it, even back in my corporate days when I would, do a town hall or something, I remember thinking, wait, I'm actually not that nervous, but I'm like, my voice is shaky. I'm shaky. I'm standing up here. I physically couldn't even hide sometimes the shaking. And I thought, what the fuck? People are going to think I'm nervous, and I'm not nervous. And I finally realized it was adrenaline. And it wasn't that I was not nervous, that I didn't have any nerves. I was not nervous, but I probably didn't have any nerves. It was that I was excited. And so there's probably a continuum. People probably don't always feel, when they're in the limelight like that. That's why I'm following a professional speaking career, because I was, that's part of my zone of genius. But I agree with you that it's easy probably to confuse those two things.
Hey, it's Erin. Look, I'm not sure if you're a book kind of person, but if you are, and you're looking for a self-development-y type book that isn't stuffy and snoozy, I sincerely think you'd love my book, You Do You-ish. I tossed aside the standard BS most nonfiction books dish up, and instead, I give you real, sometimes tough love coaching on how to think about getting the career you deserve without working harder. It'll reframe how you think about the concept of authenticity in the workplace. It'll be sure that you hear and rewrite your sucky songs and walk you through my humans framework, the 6 principles of strategic authenticity. Since it's been rolling now for over 2 years, and it has over 130 Amazon reviews and a 4.9 rating, I can say with complete sincerity, I really think you'd love it. You can buy a copy by searching You Do You-ish on Amazon, or head to the show notes for a direct link.
I want to pivot a little bit. You said something that I remember working with my first coach on that I was like, oh, we have not talked about this. I want you to tell us what you mean. You said your worth isn't dependent on anyone else. Tell us more about that.
I think this is the great lie, particularly those of us who were raised in families that were probably well-intentioned, where we were praised for achievement, where that's where our little minds, as receptive and clever and sponge-like as we were as little ones, when we were patted on the head for getting a 10 out of 10 or coming home with a blue ribbon, and our parents picked us up and spun us around, all well-intentioned, some seed gets planted that when you achieve and do well, we love you more. We revere you. Oh, all of a sudden, this is great. That's our daughter. We are, and they talk about us. And so there's some connection formed. And often there could be other situations that happen at home. Maybe everybody's situations are different, but I'm drawing together patterns of a lot of the overachievers and perfectionists that I work with. Is many of their emotional experiences were denied as children. When we talk about what it was like growing up for them, that was like, stop your crying, or no, you're okay. Think about it when you fall over on the bicycle, and then it's all this emotions like, no, you're okay. So your own emotional experience, your own trust of what you're feeling, isn't validated in that moment because somebody who knows better, so to speak, is telling you that your experience is wrong. Or the other thing that I see quite often in these overachievers, which is also aligned with my experience, is when we've been told at a young age that, oh, you're so mature for your age, which is really code for she doesn't make a mess. She doesn't inconvenience me. She doesn't impose her needs on me.
Imperfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So she sees things that maybe and holds things that maybe she shouldn't need to see and hold at that stage. So all of these things get braided together and they become a winning strategy. So there's this thing about then continuing as a young adult or as a young person or as, even going through a career to constantly try to look for people to impress. I will show you how good I am. I will prove myself here. I will outwork everybody. I will, look to make a great impression. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's these patterns again that I'm seeing and working with hundreds of people over the past 15 years of the pushing down of one's felt experience, including exhaustion, including like, I need some maintenance, like I need some sleep, I need some nourishment, I need to lay down, I need a holiday, I need not to be working these 80-hour weeks. It's pushing that down and pushing that down in search of I don't think it's ever consciously like I'm on this thing searching for worth. It's much more nuanced and subtle than that. But it's this constant feeling that there's somewhere to get to, that there's a deservingness to, there's a lot of threads to this, like I need to prove myself constantly. I need to have the light shone on me by important people, VIPs, to tell me I'm good. And that will feel good for approximately 30 minutes, 30 seconds. And then I'll need the next hit. So it's all externally based. And it's more of a compulsion than a conscious awareness that it's seeking worth. And I think that's why the busyness it helps to push down any of that knowing, not only the physical sensations, but like the wise voices that are also part of our internal choir. There's also some wisdom there, but if there's this constant busyness and chronic doing, there's no spaciousness to hear anything. And then there's this kind of addiction to the dopamine, what they call it, the neurotransmitter of more, like the molecule of more, this book that I just read, that next, better, faster. So there's always this somewhere to get to. And again, it's not that worth is the thing shimmering on the horizon, but it's more like an outrunning of the feeling of non-worth, of feeling not worthy than it is. Like if I don't have thousands of followers on social media, if my boss doesn't point me out in that meeting that I did that work, or doesn't say thank you for the thing that I did, or if I don't get the appreciation or the recognition, then I will feel passive aggressive and angry and as opposed to, whatever, and being all calm about it. So I don't think, at least in my experience, it hasn't been there like a dangling carrot to know, like, I am rapidly moving towards its worth in the crosshairs. That's where I'm going. It's not that cut and dry, but it's this inability to believe that there is that deep sense of okayness in oneself. Maybe that's a better way to language it. That I am okay in myself exactly as I am now.
What do you say? My 11-year-old just had this happen Monday night. He had a double hockey practice. His second practice, he said he was lighting things up. He was actually practicing up with a higher level team. And he said, nobody said anything. Nobody recognized that and he plays defense, that I kept, stopping the guy, or nobody noticed. What do I say in him so that I can start instilling that now for his future? How would you respond to him when he complains about that?
Oh, I just put my hand on my heart and I feel for the little him, because even with the best intentions, like, I'm sure you haven't tried to make him into an overachiever, and I'm not saying he is, but these are cues that we pick up. It's in it's in the tank that we all swim in. And first of all, I would acknowledge his experience and just say, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened. Like, tell me more about how that feels for you." Because we can also make a lot of assumptions as grown-ups about what he means.
Why he wanted that phrase, or right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is really around listening to, and really, that was one of the points I talked about earlier, of like acknowledging his felt experience. So I think that would be the first thing, and then see what comes out of that. And instead of trying to hurry it along, like, oh, I'm sure it's fine. Oh, I'm sure nobody noticed. And I'm not saying you would say this, I'm talking more generally, but just to meet him where he is and say, like, if he said that was really hard, and say, oh, I can see how that feels really hard. Of course you feel like that. There's something about the validating of that experience that can be really profound. And gentle and tender. And I mean, I don't remember who said it, but something about the feeling like being heard is one of the closest things to being loved. Like, we all crave being heard. And like a lot of these things.
I was just going to say, thank you for that reminder. I remember hearing that years ago when I started, spending more time on my mindset as I sort of started the entrepreneurial journey. And I feel like I practice that with the kids, and then I completely have forgotten that step one, right? Because I'm all about speed. I call myself an instant gratification whore, and like sometimes just slowing down. And I think you're right. There's so much power in, instead of for saying, "Oh, that's okay, you don't need that." First, just acknowledge the feeling, but then asking the questions. What did that? Why did that hurt? What is the next
Yeah.
labor?
Yeah. And tell me more about that. And then asking also, like, how can I help you? What do you need right now?
Mm,
So that it doesn't have to become a coaching session.
yeah.
But there's just something about meeting them where they are and allowing that experience, the difficulty of that experience, that you're demonstrating to him that you can hold the capacity,
Right.
because then he's learning how to increase his own capacity for holding it too.
Well, and he's increasing his self-reflection and awareness that sometimes we wait till we're 40 or 50 or never find. And so I think that that's such a great lesson. One last sort of thing I wanted to talk about. You have an unpublished book. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The unpublished book.
Having yet to be yet.
Oh, you're such a champion for me for this. Yes, your words ring in my head, Erin. So I will probably dust that thing off out of mothballs. So thank you for that encouragement. The unpublished book really outlines this journey of, it's called Enough, One Woman's Journey to Do Less and Be More. And it's this journey that some of the stories of which I've told here about really creating a profound shift in the way that I showed up in the world as a kind of mirror for anybody reading who's so over invested in having to do and perform and achieve and keep all the plates spinning. This high functioning anxiety that I talked about, that it looks incredible and inspirational from the outside, but then all the pressures that we secretly put on ourselves as overachievers, being driven by this perfectionist, which nobody gave me the memo that perfectionism and overachieving wasn't going to get me what I wanted. So I gave more and more and more and more of myself to it until I became cannibalized by the whole process. And still it wasn't enough. So I had to kind of sacrifice myself on the altar of my own overachieving just to come out the other side to realize, like, well, shit, that's not going to work. And it's such a disappointment because I realized that I have been the one doing that. And the very thing, the very system that I created that would one day mean that I could rest, one day that I would finally arrive and feel okay in myself, that I realized that whole system that I had created that made people say, wow, your life looks amazing. But it was never my felt experience. I always felt like a fraud. And to be able to undo all of that layer by layer, and it was painful, and I didn't go into it with grace. I fought it tooth and nail because I never trusted that to lay down some of those ways of being and those mindsets. It was exactly what I was talking about, the loss aversion. If I give this up, will I just disappear into the ether? Will anybody love me? Will there be any point to me? Will I just become irrelevant and pop like a soap bubble? And the answer is no. The answer is no, you won't.
Well, let me give you an add-on for the unsolicited, unpart of the mastermind that we were part of a couple of weeks ago, of sort of some very combustible feedback I gave you, meaning it just sort of like I wanted to stand on my chair and give it to you, much like the blue-eyed guy did many years ago. And I would sort of form it in a question: what if the system that's held you back from publishing that book, which is probably a conglomerate of your system the publishing system, and putting this book out into the world, not only, which is what I had said before, people desperately need this. I mean, people that are listening to this, if she isn't somebody that's meant to write a book and orate a book and, oh, by the way, not just have a podcast, but probably a call-in radio show, I don't know who is. But I would also just have you contemplate, what if cutting through all of that internal and industry noise and getting this book out into the world isn't just because it's a damn good book or it's needed, but it's also the final demonstration of everything that you talk about.
Okay. I receive that. Thank you, Erin.
I wasn't sure if you would receive it or you flip me off, but I mean it. I really mean it. As I was, like I said, diving deeper into you and listening to you even here, not only, my initial feedback was because you have such beautiful words and thoughts and you're poetic and you're smart and you're talking to so many people that need it. But I think it is, as our friend Patty Hall would say, I think it's more meta than that. And I think it's the last system that you need to probably give the bird to versus me in order to demonstrate that. So thank you for letting me sort of turn one on you. But most of this time, you've really turned me and others' heads, I think, in a very, very powerful way. And I'm certain that you have profoundly changed at least one person's life by coming on because work doesn't have to suck. So thank you so much for that. For those that are addicted to you now, what's the best way to feed that addiction?
I would highly recommend coming to hang out with me on my podcast, which is called Enough. And then there's a comma, the podcast. We talk about all of this stuff here in depth from the work perspective. What is the little engine burning underneath the desire and the compulsion to be perfectionist, people pleaser, all of these behaviors? Like, again, we don't need more leadership books. We need to look what's underneath. What is it that's driving us to this dysfunction? And then to lead ourselves in a more compassionate way and with a sense of humor too. I think humor is one of the greatest leadership tools of all. So it's all about humor and self-compassion and how we learn how to live and work in a more sustainable way.
I love it so much. Well, thank you again, dear, so much for blessing us with all of your thoughts. And I look forward to continuing our journey together as well.
Oh, it's been such a joy, Erin. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, it's Erin with a teeny request. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast and you'd like us to stick around, plus you want it to continue to grow so we can kind of swindle bigger and more knowledgeable guests to join us and to keep providing you with tangible and inspiring actions you can take to achieve the career and life you deserve, could you please just take 1 minute to leave us a rating and a review? Those reviews go a long way in attracting guests to the show, and candidly, they really make Nicole and I's day. We see you. We really do. So when you have the time and inspiration, we'd love to see a rating and review from you. Thank you.